So Clara Attene is an Italian data journalist and digital journalist trainer. As we know, Italy has been one of the hardest hit countries when the virus reached Europe at the beginning of 2020. And at the peak of the pandemic in Italy, data journalism has proven to be a powerful and a relevant tool, not just to explain the math of the contagion, but also to highlight the people, the stories behind the numbers. For instance, it was also very interesting to notice how local data can anticipate national trends. Clara will look at the coverage around COVID and other aspects like productivity, and will share with us a method to observe and analyze the figures, but always having into account the focus on the human aspects that lie in data. Clara, we're ready for your session.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Hannah, for your introduction, and welcome everybody, and thank you for joining this session. Now I'll share my slides, and hope you can see them. And we can start to delve into the topic. As Anna already said, I'm a data journalist and also a digital journalism trainer, most focused on data. And I was also the former Google News Lab teaching fellow for Italy in 2020. First of all, what does it mean to talk about the human side of data? Maybe it could be something like this, use food, that is really human, I think, and even really nice to build charts like this. This comes from an Instagram account called Data Cuisine, if you wanted to check it. And it's a nice idea, it's an interesting idea, but it's not exactly what I have in mind today for this session. I was thinking more about something like observing objective data, for instance, something that is related to our body, like the blood pressure for a while, to see if we can discover something most related to our way of life. What I mean. For instance, if you have a little bit of high blood pressure, maybe you have to drink less coffee or less wine, or maybe you are a little bit too stressed, or maybe there are it's a genetic feature you have inherited from your parents or someone else in your family. And all these are objective aspects, but we can, asking the right question and using the right approach, even discover something interesting that and most subjective related to our way of life. For instance, maybe it will be interesting to see and to check why we need to drink so much coffee, or why we are so stressed, and if we can do something to change it. And to talk about a little bit clearer about this topic, I would like to bring you back in time with me to a couple of months ago, exactly at the beginning of the the first wave of the COVID-19 pandemic here in Italy. It was March and April of 2020, where in Italy something happened. Exactly, it's that what happened was that data journalism helped to start a debate about what data say and what data can forecast. I picked an example, a really interesting example, published by Eco di Bergamo, which is a local newspaper based in Bergamo, northern Italy, and made by a colleague, a data journalist, a really great data journalist, let me say, with Isaia Invernizzi. And this is the first article of a series that Eco di Bergamo published from the beginning of April, telling about data related to the coronavirus pandemic in this area. And what they discovered was that between March and April 2020, 7,700 people died in this area. They compare this data with some other facts they could get, they have. The first one is that in the same months of the previous 5 years, the average number of deaths was about 1,700. So this means that the number of people deceased increased by 6,000 compared to the average number of the previous 5 years. And also, it's interesting to notice that only 3,000 of these 7,700 people were officially certified as coronavirus victims. And this is the local picture. Now, I want to move to a more broader picture related to all Italy, because 2 weeks later, the first article published by the Eco di Bergamo, Istat, which is the Italian National Statistic Office, published this report, was aimed to estimate the impact of COVID-19 in the most hit areas all around Italy. To do it, they pick a sample made of 1,689 towns all around Italy. Each of these towns has at least has recorded between the time since the 4th of January and the 4th of April 2020, at least 10 deaths. And this number would be equal or higher than the 20% compared to the average number of deaths that these towns recorded between 2015 and 2019. And the general findings of this report were these. If we look at the entire sample, we notice that the number of deaths increased by 102%. We can also see how they affected men and women, and it was at the time wasn't not so clear at the beginning that men were most affected by this illness. And here, going back to a regional view, this is the data related to the number of deaths in Lombardy. Lombardy is in northern Italy and is one of the most affected regions by coronavirus. It is still actually, and we can see that here the increasing was higher, quite higher, almost double the national average, plus 174%. And Bergamo, which is in Lombardy, was, as Eco di Bergamo already said 2 weeks before with their data, was the most affected province in Italy, affected by a great number of dates, to be honest, to be precise. And Cremona, Lodi, Piacenza were all provinces that are close, each one, are in the same situation. So what does this data mean for us? They are showing 2 different aspects. The first is that these data are telling us something about direct and indirect effects of COVID-19. And it means that, first of all, we are talking about contagion and possible effects of contagion, because, as I told before, we are not sure that all these deaths are because of coronavirus. But also, it's indeed they are these data is saying that probably most part of this death are related to the fact that the health system was overwhelmed. So it means that probably some of them couldn't they got coronavirus, but they couldn't have a diagnosis or couldn't have a treatment for it. Other have other kind of illness, chronic illness, for instance, but it was hard to get hospitalization, to get treatment, to get assistance that we normally can have from the health system. And There is also another aspect, and now we come to the human aspect of data. There is an important question that comes from this data. Who were the people that died in this time? And in Italy, in every country in the world that now is facing the coronavirus pandemic, we have this problem. We almost don't know really a lot or almost anything about these people. So it's important in this sense, and I think that between yesterday and today, other colleagues had show really interesting way to face all the issue and the questions related to telling coronavirus with data. And this is in this sense that I think, and I have thought really a lot about how much the human side of data matters. That's why I started thinking in this way, first because in my experience in the past years, I noticed that when I was working with data, I have to care about my spreadsheet, the formulas I need to apply, the maths, the statistic, and so on. I also have to think about the visualization, which is the best chart to talk about this topic, and which are the right color that make it really clear, really nice to see, and so on. And all these are really important aspects, are fundamental aspects, let me say. And I'm really always support, and I will always do, the idea that we need a rigorous method to approach and to handle data. But on the meantime, we need also to consider and to bear in mind, to take in account the empathic side, because data, as the rest of the things we do as journalists, means that we are talking about people and we are talking to people. In this sense, I want to also to show you another example. It's not only a matter of COVID-19, but if you have the opportunity to read this book, Invisible Woman, maybe you already know because it's quite famous, written by the researchers Caroline Criado Perez, you can see how much how many data biases exist on collecting data related to women. And the same, I think, it's about everyone, every minorities, or everything is everyone is considered as a minority. And these biases are affecting data, and then are affecting all the decisions and the policies that are made relating to this specific target of inside the population. That's why, in my opinion, it's important to find a way to train a method that helps us to balance the accuracy and to balance the empathy we need when you use data to talk about something with our audiences. And so, what I would like to do now is to show you quick the 5 steps we need to go through to use this method, and then to have a little to take some time to try together how to apply it. Talking about the steps, they are 5 and they are similar to the steps you normally have to undertake when you want to build a visualization. The first one is observation. I think really in this to create a right mindset to balance method and empathy, I think that observation is a really important step. Because in this moment, you have to collect data, and mostly to ask you, before collecting data, to ask you the right question. The more you ask question in number and quality, I mean, the best probably are your findings. And so I mean that if you start from a question, I need to understand better how many people can be affected by coronavirus. And then you start adding other questions, they make you able to focus on more details. And having more details, you can create a more clear frame, context to give to your readers and to understand the topic you want to tell them. Secondly, it's time to measure the data you have. So you need to look for them to understand which can be the most trustable sources, or even if you need to pick some, to collect some of this data by yourself. Then it's the third step, it's related to reading, analyzing, and categorizing data. Reading is the first one because obviously sometimes clear data could be really clear and immediately they say it say us something that means that we have find our story, we have find our news, but also it will be it need to use some formulas, use some maths, some statistic to create some index moving from the data you have, or to apply a filter. And in this sense, you can observe all the aspects inside the data and go to the next step, which is finding the stories. Finding the stories, in my opinion, is really connected, strictly linked to the first step, the observation. Because if you train yourself, train your mind to ask the right question when you observe, when you are exploring the area, and to see which kind of data can be useful, can be the most interesting for your work. The same happen with stories. So it's mostly a matter of what I ask to data and what they answer me. In this sense, I'd like to you an interview given in 2019 by Giorgia Lupi, which is an information designer, and she gave an interview on the magazine of the Data Visualization Society, which is really interesting because she focused on the topic of the complexity. Broader and attentive, effective observation of data allow us to understand, to have a clear idea about the complexity that the news carry on with self, and help us also to choose the right way to communicate, to visualize it, and to make it effective and understandable for our audiences, no matter which are our audiences. Last but not least, the final step is visualization, which means, of course, to understand which are the best way to communicate, to transform this data in image, charts, picture that can help our readers, our audiences. I don't want to talk just about readers, to better understand that complexity that we are trying to handle throughout data. I want to now to ask you, to invite you to try to apply a little bit of this method together. I will show you the step and the way I do it, but you can also try by yourself. In this case, I don't want to focus to visualization, but mostly to the first 4 steps. So try to understand which can be a useful approach to create a mindset, a personal mindset that balance method, accuracy, and empathy. And To do this, I choose as a topic the productivity. And I choose it because you know that in macro and microeconomics, this is normally an index, a parameter that is always analyzed, and it's considered really important. Now we are going to work on a small data scale, not big data in this context. And to prepare yourself to it, I want to ask you to pick your agenda. Could be your paper agenda if you're a little bit vintage type like me, or can be even your calendar on your digital calendar. And look, take some minutes, a couple of minutes, to look how many and which job task you have marked down in for each day in the last 3 or 5 days. I put 3 or 5, it's up to you. Choose how many do you want. If you choose the last 3, it will be enough, because we don't need a big amount of of data for now. So if you want to try, I give you some times, and in the meantime, I show as an example my digital agenda. I use both digital paper one, just to make my mind a little bit more confused in some days at least. And this is some potential example. This is it was the last week of October, and I just marked down some of my usual job tasks, from researching content to publishing writing pieces, publishing posts. I choose different colors because some of these, as I work as a freelancer, some of these tasks are related to different job, or could be even different type of task that you want to mark down. And also some video call, catch up with former colleagues, and also preparing invoices. That it's also a nice moment in the month. And that's the idea. Now, if you have picked your agenda, paper, or even like this, paper version of the digital one, next step, it would be to pick even some piece of blank paper and some pen or pencil of different colors. It would be great. If you don't have the possibility to print a page from your digital agenda, or you don't want to highlight, circle things on your paper agenda, just bring a white piece of paper, and you can recreate your agenda like this, putting on the top the name of the weekdays, and here on the side the hours of the day, and just mark down write down the job task you have done in the last three days. And you could also use a different, go straight and use a different color to highlight each of these tasks. When you have done this, we can start observing what our agenda is saying. And this observation, as I told you before, is fundamentally a moment where we ask ourselves some question. And this question can be, for instance, how much or how many, of your job task did you complete during each day? How many did you deleted or rephrase or delegated to someone else? Now, if, as we don't have so much time, you don't have to pick all these categories. They are just an example. You can pick just 2, quite simple. Those are the tasks I completed and those I deleted, or just postpone, as you prefer. And picking down your notes or your agenda, you can do something like this. This is another paper copy of my digital calendar, and I do this way. I chose 3-4 different colors. The green one to highlight, as in this case, the task I have completed. The purple one to indicate those I needed to move to another day of the week or just to another time during the same day. Then I also use the blue one, I hope you can see it, to highlight that I delegated this task. And here even there is a red one to mark that I couldn't do this call. And this is an idea to highlight the different kind of different categories for each job task. It's also interesting to notice that I put here or here some notes, and normally they are related in my cases to the fact that I needed more time to complete that task. I did them, but I needed more time. Now, after doing this, we can move to the next step. Hope I'm not going too fast. In case, please write it in the chat, and please, if Anna can alert me on that, I can slow down a little bit. And the next step is starting with the analysis. You see that I put measurement analysis, and before was observation measurement, because of course all of these steps are in a continuous line. We don't start and stop them with a real breakpoint. So in the analysis, what we can do, looking at the highlights we have made before, we can see, of course, the job task scheduled for each day, and so I can see which they are, the type. Maybe if I'm a freelancer, probably I have different job tasks related to my different customer, to my different job. I can see the frequencies. I have a daily production of pieces, or I have lots of meetings during the week, or just some days are dedicated to meeting while others are dedicated to writing. Also, which category they belong, in the meaning that I've done them, or I've just delegated or deleted, and so on. How much time I've spent for each one. And even in the analysis, we can also notice which are our feelings about them. They make them satisfied, frustrated. We would like to do more of one task and less of another. It's all aspects that are related to what data is saying to us, but also to find the stories who are interesting for us. And that's why, because from a simple like this, our agenda, everybody of us, I think, has it, can bring some interesting information about the way we work, for instance, or about the way how much we are flexible. So it's normal to me, or it's something that annoying me, the fact that I need to move some of my tasks. The way we manage our time, we are good, or we are always in a rush, anxious because looks like the time is not enough for us, or how much do we trust our colleagues? It's are we used to delegate some job to them, or we prefer to do everything by ourselves, and so on. So what happened? And this is the visualization part that I don't ask you to do right now, but if you like to try and maybe wanted to share it on the social network, I think we can use for it also the hashtag NISData. would be nice to see what you can create and you have seen in your agenda, and even make a discussion in the next day if you like. This is a little visualization that I have created. Please consider that I can't draw and this is just a sketch, so forgive me, and for everything is not perfect on the aesthetic side of this, was just to give you an idea. So what I have done is this. I just put on the top, as you can see, the name of the weekdays. Then here I put the time of the day on the right, both on the left and right side. And each of these rectangles is equal to 1 hour. Again, forgive me because the rectangles are not really equal, and this is not really accurate if we are talking from the method, but it's just a sketch, as I already said. And I choose, and I wanted to show you, I choose a different color to put in evidence the different kind of task. I choose actually to show what job task I've completed, and I highlight them with the green color. Then I use the purple to sign those I moved to other time along the day or the week. I also use the red to highlight the things that I couldn't do for any reason, and the blue finally to highlight some tasks I've delegated. I also add some notes about the time, and to see it with a little bit closer, here the square brackets means that all these 4 rectangles were dedicated to the same task, and also I put a notice highlighted that I needed 1 hour more compared to what I've planned. Then here, the same on Wednesday, I planned 2 hours, but I needed to add 1 more hour that was added, and that I put on Thursday morning, and I completed my task the day after. And here, other small things that I can show you, the task deleted, those that delegated, and so on. Here, it was Friday afternoon, and here I left 2 hour left, while here I have one other task. Looking at the general image, what I can see here is a pattern and something that is human, subjective, but it's interesting, and I notice it more looking at the data, is that probably I have to improve, I have to change the way I manage my time, because it happened at least 1, 3, 4 times during the week that I need to add more time to complete my task. So it's interesting, for instance, in this case, to try to understand why, because I'm not good on planning, or because maybe I'm doing really a lot of things and maybe I need to delegate something, or because even it's a matter of balance of the time, and maybe some of these or just doing this I can lose some time with no specific reason. So they are all aspects related to time management that can tell me something interesting about the way I work and I manage my time. For instance, I even looking at this data, I can even look for some solutions, some other different options. Maybe I can choose to delegate more. I did it just once during the week, and so maybe it could be a way I can try to see if I can improve my way of work, and in general my productivity, and so making something good for my daily routine. Now, it's already time to recap, and all this part is to remember us that data always tell us something about human beings, about them, and the fact that we are always talking to them. And so for this reason, we need to train and to improve our awareness about it, and also keeping at the same time a reliable, rigorous method to handle data. I really wanted to stress the fact that empathy and accuracy are not competitors. They are on two fundamental aspects that we have to bear in mind if you want to consider and to apply to make sure they are realized, if you want to use at our best the potential of data, if you want to understand the complexity and being able to communicate, to visualize it to our audiences. I think I've finished, and probably I'm a little bit early. This is my contact. If you want to join me on Twitter or LinkedIn, or just drop a line by email, I'm always happy to share view with the colleagues. I really wanted to thank you for your participation, and hope this little session could be have been interesting for you. And again, thank you to the European Journalism Center for inviting me to this session.
Thank you, Clara, for this amazing session. It was very interesting. And I think all of us understood why it's important to go beyond the numbers, beyond the figures, and to focus on the human side of data. In the case of the coronavirus, we saw that we had the statistics, we had percentages, but behind that, we could highlight some deficiencies of the health system. Also, we could highlight some social issues. And that's why we organized this session with Clara to help us understand not just why it's important, but also how to do it. And Clara, we have here a question that I want to share with you from Avinaya. And the question is, do you have any kind of visualization tools that you like? Maybe you can list a couple of them.
Okay, yeah, sure. Well, I can say the first one that comes to my mind is Flourish. I've used it quite a lot while I was working for Google, because Flourish is was created by Kiln, which is a company based in the Netherlands, and which is also partner with the Google News Lab. And I found it really, I think it is the heaven of data journalists, because you can use it for simple charts, but they also have some template are really that make you in a quite easy way to reach the wow effect that sometimes it's useful to catch the attention of the audience. And another one for visualization, of course, I think that Infogram, it's a trustable, also a trustable tool to use, quite similar even in the way you use it to Flourish.
We have a similar question from Jan, and is, which instruments do you use instead of Google Fusion tables?
Okay, Google Fusion tables were retired at the end of 2019, if I remember well. And well, actually, the other good tool that you can use inside the Google area I'm meaning is the My Maps, which are the maps you can personalize, you can add some points, you use the level. If I'm not wrong, for now you can create till 10 levels, and it's quite good tool that more or less give you the same option that Google Fusion Table did.
Thank you, Clara. And now we have a question from Antonio. He says, good morning, Clara. Do you think that the Italian institute which provide official data like ESTAD, Banca d'Italia, etc., publish an exhaustive and updated data?
Ooh, great question. As you probably know, even recently we had there is a public call that answer to collect and to open, or better to open because they are already collecting, at least I hope, more data about COVID-19. So it means that as in other countries, we need more open data. I think that Istat and Banca d'Italia work quite well, even considering that, as you probably know, statisticians need sometimes to collect, verify, and then publish data. So it's quite normal that if you go looking for some data about a specific topic, maybe you find data published in 2019, but it's normal compared to the fact that they have to follow specific steps to ensure that the data they are publishing are well verified and are clear. It's important also, and could be another open discussion, the point that the way we collect data, as I told before, talking about invisible women or data related to minorities, or right now the data that come from each region of Italy about COVID. It's crazy that for a long time, and still now I suspect each region is giving us different data collecting in at least a little different data way, sorry. And this means that in Piedmont, I'm reading a data collected in a way, in Lombardy there is another one, in Rome another one, and so it's crazy because it's impossible to get a true picture of what is going on.
Thank you, Clara. And then we have a second question from Abhinaya, and is if you have any interesting examples of info visualization that you like.
Ooh, well, there are a lot. Let me think. Well, for instance, I think that you can find something nice if you have a look on the blog and the Twitter account of Flourish that collect not only the example they made to show us how to use the tool, but also they collect at least once per year things made by the other user of Flourish. There is another one, Change Tools. Now I was thinking about Tableau, which is, it comes from, it was made a few years ago. It was about the Titanic, and it was a nice visualization that show how many people for each class from first to third class and the crew died or survived during the drowning of Titanic. And it was really interesting because you get, even in that case, the objective aspects, how many between women, men, between the different class of voyagers, but also you can see that the difference, for instance, people who traveled in third class died more than those that were in the first class. And in this way, you can see immediately objective number and social aspect, human aspects.
Clara, thank you very much. And now we have a really challenging question from Lorenzo. And then the question is, do you think Italian news agencies are doing a good use of data journalism? Is there more potential that can be unlocked?
Well, I think that for the second one, the answer is yes, sure. I have to say that during the first wave of pandemic, I noticed that we have had really good works in this topic, like that made by Isaiah in Vernizzi, but also I appreciated the charts made by Il Sole 24 Ore, which create an opposite session dedicated to data. As I know, the Italian community of data journalists is quite small compared to other countries, and so I think, but I also know that many people that are working in this field are really good, are really passionate, are really interested, for instance, on the topic of open data, because the most of this job is also finding data. If we don't have data, it's really hard to be good at creating visualization or creating interesting news focus on specific topic using the data. So we can improve, and I hope that in the next year, so we can do more and more and better.
Clara, thank you very much. I also wanted to highlight two sources that you included in your presentation. The first one is Data Cuisine. We share the link in the chat. So feel free to explore this website, also their social media, because they have really interesting examples. And also, we have a question here, Clara, and she asked if you can share the examples that you gave just a couple of minutes ago in the chat, like very quickly,
Yeah,
maybe
sure.
one of them. Yes, thank you very much, Clara.
I'll do
So I
soon.
think it's time. Sorry, Clara?
I'll do soon. Yeah.
I think it's time, guys, to wrap up our day. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for the participation, your questions, your comments.